Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast, where we interview experts in driver recruiting. We provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game.
Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast. I'm your host, Ginger Craddock. Today, I have one of the strongest leaders in the trucking industry, Wayne Skinner. He has vision and he creates opportunity for all of those in his talent pipeline. Wayne, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ginger. Good to see you. I really appreciate the invite.
Excellent. Share with our audience what your current role is at National Express, please.
Yeah, I'm currently serving in a senior vice president of fleet, maintenance, and procurement. So my role, I'm responsible for about 17,000 assets, U.S. and Canada. We have a team in my department of around 600 people, and that's everything from everyone from technicians in the shop, keeping those buses on the road, to maintenance supervisors, maintenance leaders. I also have a finance team, a finance and reporting team. I have a parts and warranty team that do a great job of making sure we're ordering the right part at the right time and getting the warranty credits that we need. I also have a asset management group that we recently developed late in 2024 to help us move assets around to reduce capital costs. And then lastly, but certainly not least, I have a chief engineer that reports to me. Right near the end of the year, I also took on responsibilities for procurement. So I have a team of procurement professionals, and we work through contracts not only in the fleet and maintenance department, but we also support other portions of our business, such as safety and operations and IT.
And so now our listeners can hear why I said Wayne is one of the most talented leaders that I know in the industry, because he has the ability to assemble teams, develop teams, and create vision and excitement and success for the individual team members as well as the teams as a whole. And so I think you can see that in his areas of responsibility. So Wayne, that's where you are today. I want to go back to the 17-year-old kid. How did you go from the 17-year-old kid to where you are today?
Well, that was a long time ago, Ginger, and I was a few pounds lighter, or more than a few, I have to admit. But I can remember getting close to graduation, and my dad certainly offered an opportunity for me to go to a good state school and was going to pay. I don't know if he's going to pay for all of it. He was certainly going to help pay for a good portion of it. I just had a desire to join the military since I was young. My dad was career Navy, and his advice to me was, son, whatever you do, don't join the Navy, after spending all that time out at sea. But I wanted to join the Army. I had wanted to join the Army for a long time. And so that was what I was hoping to do. And I was definitely going down that path. And for some strange reason, I wanted to be a UH-60 helicopter mechanic. I wanted to work on helicopters. And I talked to a recruiter, and, like any good recruiter, they're promising you, of course, you can work on those. And of course, we can get you signed up for that. And I remember looking at the where you sign your name on the line, and there was a 6-year enlistment commitment, which at the age of 17, I hadn't even turned 18 yet. 17, I thought, okay, that sounds like a great deal to me. And I remember talking to my dad, and he said, hey, you don't know anything about the Army. You want to join the Army, but you really don't know. You watch a lot of movies, played with a bunch of G.I. Joes, so you think you know, but you really don't know. I said, why don't you sign up for something that's a little shorter of a commitment, still do something that's interesting, and then after that commitment, if you still love the Army and you want this as a career, you can always change what your job is and go be that helicopter mechanic. So I thought, it makes a lot of sense. I'll do that. So I went back and talked to my recruiter. I'm like, hey, what else do you have that's, maybe a 3 or 4 year commitment? And there was a light wheel mechanic. So a 63 Bravo was the MOS at the time. I think all that's since changed, but I would be working on 2.5, 5.5 ton or 5-ton vehicles and working on some other wheeled vehicles. So I decided to go that route. And that's really how I got into this industry, into the technical transportation industry. And actually, I just never left once I got into that. But I do thank my dad, because I did get out of active duty after my 3-year active duty commitment. And then I transitioned into a National Guard, a couple different National Guard units to finish up my 8-year enlistment requirement. But I remember thinking, like, I'm so glad I listened to my dad that I didn't go that whole 6 years, So I'm glad I just went to the first 3 and then decided I had a decision to make after that point.
Well, and I love that. And I love the conversation between managing the expectations of your dad and him hearing what you wanted to do, and how you guys as a family had conversations. And that's one thing we see in trying to develop the trades and get more people involved, this next generation, current generation, actively involved, and see what a great life you can have as a technician, a great life you can have in the trades, a great life as a CDLA driver. There are a lot of people who don't want to sit behind a desk, that want to live a very different, active life. And so there was a lot of good communication looking back between you and your dad. And I think that's key. And I think that's something I want to share with parents and recruiters and executives out there, is where are the ways that we can help improve those open conversations between parents and their kids. Because we've had some students that are like, hey, we want to go into the trades, but the parents have been very bent. We're hearing this from counselors, that the parents are very bent on them taking a different, maybe more traditional 4-year route. And so I love the openness that you had, and how you as a teenager also respected and listened to your father. So it's great results there on both sides, I'd say.
Well, Ginger, I wish I would have listened to him more on some other things, but on that instance, I did take his advice. Probably should have taken his advice on some other areas, but I can't do anything about that now. But I will say that I had a great experience in the military and learned this craft. In fact, when I got prior to being discharged honorably from the Army, I did apply to be a diesel technician at a very large carrier, Schneider National. This was back in the mid 90s. And, I thought, this is my career. I love working on equipment. I thought I was really good at it. And then I got hired at Schneider as just a beginning diesel technician. I realized I didn't know much at all. I thought I knew it all from the Army. And I quickly was humbled that I didn't know a whole lot. But I spent about 5 years developing my craft as a technician, and learned a lot and really enjoyed it. And then there was actually an opportunity to leave Schneider and to become a senior technician at a small delivery company known as FedEx Express. And at the time, they were hiring, and the pay was a starting pay was almost what topped out pay was. So there was an attraction to go and look into this and to see, what kind of opportunity exists there on the FedEx side. And so was hired by FedEx and spent the next 7 years learning another set of skills and competencies by working on equipment that mainly supported the aircraft, those ground support equipment. So going from a heavy truck industry into a ground support equipment industry, still a lot of similarities, but an opportunity to grow. And in between that time at Schneider and while I was a senior tech at FedEx, I did go and become a non-traditional student. I did complete a business degree and then took advantage of the Army College Fund, the GI Bill, and on also some of the college funds available for National Guardsmen, and completed my engineering degree at University of Memphis. And I really had a desire to move into an engineering role. And I can remember after graduating, I was still a senior technician at FedEx, and I had applied for my very first associate engineer position, and this was more on the operations side. And I can remember all that time and effort putting into working and then going to school and trying to keep my grades up and trying to excel and win scholarships and those types of things. And I can remember I applied for this role and I hadn't heard anything. I had, no communication from the hiring manager. And I remember just being discouraged. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, I've done all this and, what if it was for nothing? And, she, in her wise ways, she said, God did not bring you through all of that to just leave you standing still. And she was trying to encourage me. She was being very blunt with me, as she tends to do. And Ginger, I'm not exaggerating, as soon as she finished making that comment to me, my phone rang. And it was the hiring manager that had asked me to show up for an interview that next week. So you talk about just a memorable experience, that going through that, and it was such a tough time, but I did get hired as that associate engineer position and moved into ops engineering. That was quite a transition to move from a hourly technical role into the professional ranks, meaning the salaried professional ranks. And I spent several years in operational engineering. And then there was a vehicle engineering role that came up in another department, still within FedEx. And I applied for that and was hired. And Ginger, it was just a great experience. I got to do, I had the opportunity to do so many different projects with homologating vehicles from other countries into the U.S., specifications, project work. And it was just a great experience before I had moved into the management role. So probably better for me to stop talking so much and make sure I'm following your line of thinking here.
Well, this is exactly what I want people to see, is how you entered the industry and how you kept taking those incremental steps based on your interest. And so you have a passion for growth and for innovation, and you're curious by nature. And so you're always pushing forward. And so I see that in how you progress through the ranks. I want to acknowledge that moment where you're like, was it worth it? Because forward momentum and growth is commingled with was it worth it? Am I going to keep going? And so in that, we see your resilience. And we also see, in the wise, direct words of your wife, how important it is with who you surround yourself with. And there's something about how excellence surrounds itself with excellence.
That's a great point. I've heard her tell our youngest daughter a number of times, is you are really the sum of the 5 people that you're around. So get around the 5 smartest people and get around the 5 people that are going to push you forward. And I think that's not only goes for young teenagers, it goes for adults as well. So surround yourself with those who excel and who are pushing forward. And, Ginger, you're right. I am very curious by nature, but I'll admit I have a bit of a fear of getting stagnant. So I am guilty of looking for, okay, what's the next growth opportunity? Maybe not necessarily career-wise, but what can I do to grow my skill set? Or where am I, from based looking around me, where do I have a gap? And I think that that's very, very important for anybody, regardless of what position you're in, is don't get stagnant, don't get comfortable. Certainly continue to hone your craft, whether you're a technician or whether you're in a leadership role. Continue to hone your craft, find out where you have gaps and go work on those gaps, work on building your competencies. I mean, we are moving at such a fast rate right now. We've got AI that is right on our cusps. And, we need to go learn as much as we can to become even more relevant. I remember as a young engineer, I remember talking to my manager at the time. And, I was like, how can I make sure that I'm always valuable to the company? And he said exactly that. He said, make sure that you are the most valuable person that they have. Now, easier said than done, but his point was make yourself valuable. Don't get comfortable and don't get stagnant. Make sure that you're valuable. And you can do your own self-assessment and determine, is there opportunity for me to improve? What can I do? And I don't necessarily mean work more hours. I might mean work more hours, but I don't necessarily mean work more hours. But how can you be more efficient? How can you be the best team player that department has? Because whether we like to admit it or not, you have a brand. And do you want people speaking well about your brand, or do you want people speaking negatively about it? Because they're going to do one or the other. And I don't know about you, Ginger. I think I know about you, but I would say I'd much rather have people talk positively about the brand that I'm portraying versus the other way.
100%. And that's where my find joy in the journey. People are like, is she really joyful all the time? No, but in the hard places, who I'm surrounded with and how I choose to find that path through is that purposeful growth mindset of vision and joy and lifting others up. That takes intention. And Wayne, you do that really well. And you've created some structured programs of apprenticeship to lift each other up. Paint a picture of what it looks like to build an effective apprenticeship program. This could be for a small fleet. This could also be for larger organizations. I know you've had experience with both.
Yeah, so we certainly had developed an apprentice program at FedEx, and that's a very large corporation. We're actually working on one now that I have some people on my team leading the efforts. So the most fun the most fun I had developing an apprentice program was at Ozark Motor Lines. We were primarily hiring for the Memphis location. We had several other locations, but the demand wasn't as great because those were smaller locations. Memphis was the largest campus. We had a number of different repair shops, from body shop to the get ready shop, the truck shop, trailer shop, and tire shop. So we had a larger need for not only hiring, but also growing our own. So we didn't want to just hire a technician or a technician apprentice that had gone through their theory and lab. We wanted that to be our entry point, someone who had been exposed to electrical theory, diesel theory, worked through some lab environments, and TCAP provided that. But what we wanted to do is take those people and then put them through an Ozark-specific program where we knew by the time they graduated our apprentice program, they were technicians that had been exposed to all things Ozark, all equipment types, and they could hit the floor running and then really be one of our greatest technicians as they move along because they just had so much experience. So we created an interview process associated with this apprentice program. And then we created 5 phases. And those phases started with the tire shop. So what we tried to do is start very entry level and then move up and advance as the candidate progressed through their apprentice phase. So we spent about 52 weeks on this apprentice program. We paid these apprentices the entire time, and we grew their skill set. And we also had gates. So we didn't just let somebody walk through this program without progressing properly. But just as a high level overview, Ginger, we would interview these candidates. We'd put them into this program. We would provide a toolbox. We'd provide hourly pay, set schedule. And then there was a number of competencies in each of these phases that the apprentices had to complete. And they completed them by documenting the work order multiple times for each competency. And then the supervisor at each of these shops had to sign off that, yes, Ginger has gone through all of these competencies, and here's the date and the work order. And there was also training requirements that had to be completed. So we did that for every single phase of the 5-phase program. And every time that an apprentice graduated from phase 1 to go to phase 2 or on to the next phase, we would give them a pay increase, and we would provide them with some type of power tool as a reward for, hey, you've done great. There's been no conduct or performance issues. You've completed all your competencies, and here's some additional pay. And by the way, prior to going into the next phase, here's the next group of tools that you're going to need. So the idea was accumulate the tools that you need to be a technician at the end of this throughout that program where it was relevant. It didn't make sense for someone to buy all these tools that they would need to work on tractors in the truck shop if they were only in the tire shop, right? So that was only necessary as they progressed through the program. So when I had an opportunity to take my current role with National Express, we had several candidates going through that program. They were in various different phases. And I remember seeing not too long after I took this current position that I saw one of our apprentices had graduated out of the full program and was now a technician on site. So the program worked. We were really proud of it. I certainly don't want anyone to think I did this in a vacuum. We had a team of leaders and professionals in Ozark that helped us create this program, but it wasn't just verbal. This was a well-documented program that we put in place. And then even before every candidate start, they got a paper packet, a binder of what the process was going to look like. And it was very transparent. They knew exactly how much they were going to make, exactly what competencies they needed to complete. And the supervisors knew as well. So really a fun program. I think a very repeatable program, but not so rigid that if we saw maybe an equipment type change or maybe some other work task, it was flexible enough to where we could add that into the competency requirements.
Now let's take a minute to thank today's sponsor. Do you hire truck drivers in hard to fill areas, or do you need help creating efficiency in your recruiting department? You're not alone. With 50 plus years experience, Trucking Clicks specializes in data-driven strategies, industry-leading customer experience, and custom solutions that'll get you to your goal. Trucking Clicks is your go-to place for high-quality, direct leads at scale. Visit truckingclicks.com or call 512-982-0816 today.
And when I think about that, we talked at the beginning about how tight the pool is of potential candidates for technicians. Have you seen these apprentice programs actually give you a competitive advantage in recruiting those technicians?
Yeah. So if you're not growing a technician, basically what you're doing is you're poaching either from a competitor or from someone else in the industry because the industry is so constrained. So I do believe it gives everyone that enters into these types of programs and a competitive advantage because you are starting a technician early in their career. You're gaining some loyalty with this employee because you are helping them bridge that gap from a technical school into the actual working ranks of their peers, and you have a pathway. Ginger, I could tell you, joining the military and then going over to Snyder. Snyder had a 2-week onboarding program, and then they put you with a leader in that shop to help you understand the processes. But I don't recall there being any apprentice programs when I was entering into this industry. So I was talking with some of the team at Ozark when we were creating this. I'm like, do you guys remember when you were trying to get into this industry? And I mean, we are really trying to, I think, roll out a red carpet for, hey, if you're interested in this industry, look what we're doing to try to help you be successful, right? Not only do we want you to be successful, we want you to become a technician and work for us. Guaranteed income, a satisfying career. By the way, a career that is not going anywhere. We talked about AI a few minutes ago. We will always need qualified professionals to repair equipment because mechanical things break, and that's just the reality. And I don't think that we're going to see a slowdown on the need for mechanical things. In fact, things are going to become even more advanced. So we need more quality candidates as time goes on. There's been several studies that have looked at the current age of current technicians, and we've done this not only with the companies I've worked with, but we've also looked at this through the Technology Maintenance Council, and we continue to see that bubble of age continue to age. So there is a need for people to get into this industry while they're young and move into it. Especially, I think we know over the last couple of decades, there's been a large push for high schoolers to go into the traditional 4-year college. And hey, I'm all for that. I think it's a great thing. But there's also a drastic need for the trades. And I think that we're starting to see that change. In fact, I read an article not too long ago where Gen Z or millennials, they're now going to be one of the largest groups that will become who enter into the trades. Not exactly sure which one it was, but it was certainly larger than what Gen X was.
Yes. And the reason your story resonates so strongly with me, Wayne, is my husband's father was a research chemist, and he had a very similar, when he was 17 years old, he had a very similar conversation with his father. And I always thought his father was so wise because his dad, like your dad, would have sent him wherever he wanted to go. And Carl's like, that's not for me. And his dad kind of drew out of him what he was interested in. And he had done HVAC at the high school class that he got to take. And so he entered healthcare as a entry-level HVAC repair guy on commercial equipment and very quickly rose to the top because he had leadership qualities and team building qualities like you do. But what really propelled him to the front was that combination of technical experience that I'm hearing you had from honing your craft as a technician. Carl did the same thing. He honed his craft, and then he began to study leadership and team development and became recognized as one of the top 5 in the nation at what he does. And so I just want our audience to know that introduction that I gave to Wayne, I lived with one of the strongest leaders. And so when I say Wayne Skinner is a skilled team leader in development, you heard it from his role at National Express. I want you guys to see he understands how to build that pipeline because he's come up through that pipeline. And so as we transition here, what advice would you give to the moms and dads, the young men and women out there? What advice would you give them about considering the trades and how to grow according to their natural interest and bent?
Yeah, so I think what I would tell someone young, and I've said this before, is definitely stay curious. I think I'd mentioned I'm curious by nature, and that helps me to see what's next. And I think that is a trait that will benefit anyone, whether it's this industry or not. But stay curious, see how to become the best at what you do, and certainly follow your bend. I think we live in a unique time right now where there's so much opportunity out there. You're not forced to work in some industry that you're not really cut out for. In fact, we've all had to make tough decisions on certain employees. And I think that in some ways, even though maybe it hurts at the time, the long term is helping that employee get on the right path. And by the way, the trades are a great path for people to get into now. I've never seen the wages as high as what they are. Like I mentioned, the demand is not going down. I mean, certainly there are some barriers to entry. There's you don't have to go to a tech school, but certainly getting into a tech school will help launch that. And then, of course, there's the purchase of tools. But a lot of employers are helping technicians get the tools that they need. I mean, like I mentioned, our apprentice program, not only did we provide a toolbox, but we also provided the minimum tool list and helped them gather and accumulate those tools. But then we also provided some of the more expensive power tools just to help seed their toolbox of tools that they would need to be faster and more efficient technicians. I would also say that years ago, we used to call ourselves mechanics, and that's because we tend to work on mechanical things. But now you tend to hear the word technician. Now, I think that name probably gets thrown around loosely with other industries, but the candidates that we are looking for truly are technicians. They're technical by nature. They understand diagnostic processes, and that is really going to be the key for anyone moving into this realm. Yes, there's still mechanical components that need to be repaired and replaced, but understanding how systems work and understanding the diagnostic platforms, that is really going to make a technician as valuable as possible, especially among their peers in a shop environment.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. And as technicians are looking to enter the space and they're looking to develop their careers, what advice would you give on building a network or how to build a network or the value of building a network?
So there certainly is, I can't stress enough the value in growing your network. And there's a number of different industry platforms out there, such as, like when I was at Ozark, I volunteered to assist with the Tennessee Trucking Association, made a lot of connections with the TTA. I'm also got re-engaged with the Technology Maintenance Council, which is the technical arm of the American Trucking Association. In fact, I continued on with that path. I just took over the chairmanship for the S5 study group this last spring. And I just moderated a panel with experts from the California Trucking Association and the American Trucking Association, as well as Daimler and Zonar. And we just talked about all the challenges that fleets experience with emissions and other mostly CARB regulations. Some of it's EPA. A lot of that landscape's changing. But my point is there's so much opportunity out there. Don't waste an opportunity to make a connection. You just never know what that connection is going to lead to. And then I would also give advice that, and I've thought about this for years, but you are always interviewing. You don't know who you're around, but you're always interviewing. So you always want to leave a very positive impression. And Ginger, you know this, everyone has a brand. So you need to decide, are you going to have a positive brand or are you going to have a negative brand? Because you're going to have one or the other. Highly suggest leaving a very positive brand with whoever you come into contact with, because you just don't know what that connection will mean 1, 5, or 10 years, maybe more after. First impressions, you never get to make those over again.
And we really do have opportunity to make someone else's day better and leave our world a better place every day.
That's right.
And so as we wrap up, when we talk about vision and opportunity, we see that it exists in your story at every level in the trucking industry. And so my question for you as we wrap up, Wayne, are you as excited about where you're growing and curious today professionally as you were back in the day?
Ginger, I can give you a resounding yes. I have never been I'm always excited about what I'm doing, but this current role is stretching and growing me in ways that I hadn't anticipated, and I love it. So just having the overall scope of responsibility between two different countries and the span, we have assets and customers everywhere from as far west as Fairbanks, Alaska, all throughout the U.S. and Canada, and far south as southern Florida. So it's a great experience getting involved with procurement. Also, I love the engineering side because I came from that. I love the parts and warranty side. I get excited about finance and the P&L, and I'm probably putting people to sleep talking about these things, but it's not just a very myopic repairing of equipment. It's the holistic piece of a total cost of ownership from a fleet perspective. And that has tentacles into contract agreements and credits and all types of things. And it's just, it's fun. And when you can have fun, I'm not saying that we don't work really hard. We work a lot of hours, but you can have fun working those a lot of hours, or you can say, I really wish I was doing something else. And if you do think I should be doing something else, you probably should be doing something else, because time is your most valuable asset. You don't get to make any more of it. Once this hour is done after work conference, I can never go back and get it. So I hope every hour that I'm spending, I'm having a great time, I'm adding value, and I'm having fun doing it. So that's my goal for sure.
Wayne, you've added vision, you've added value. I hope those out there who are considering for their students or maybe looking at a career change, maybe in a different decade, I would encourage you to look at the trucking industry and the many facets of it. It is by far my favorite industry that I've had an opportunity to be a part of. And it's because of people like Wayne Skinner and what we get to do every day. Wayne, I'm as hungry and as excited professionally as I've ever been, and I love trucking. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for the invite, Ginger. Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us today. Our goal with the Hire Truckers podcast is to provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to level up your recruiting game. If we added value, take a few seconds to share this with your network. Have a great week.